Mikee P back on the End of Money Players podcast for this first week in January, actually heading to the second week in January now. And a little Twin Spires segment this week for the Players podcast. We're going to bring in a guy who's been doing plenty of shows. If you're paying attention to the network, he has his, and the contest winner was. He's up to 24 episodes now, Mr. John Gaspar. John, I love your show. Honestly, I think it's been a great addition to the network. We're talking Twin Spires contest, so I had to get you in.
Yeah, I think the contest is a growing part of the gambling landscape, if you will. I think people really like a lower priced entry point into contests where they can play for their cash. And if they have a $50 limit, Twin Spires offer contests for $50. If you have a $100 daily limit, you can play for $100. If you have a $1,000 limit, you can play for $1,000. And it offers prizes, and they offer prize pools, and they offer cash pools. So it's really a spot where people can go in, know what their budget is for the day, almost gives them a set figure that they can control themselves and what they're going to play and what they're going to focus on. And it's been a really big rising segment on Twin Spires.
Absolutely. And then this segment, of course, is sponsored by TwinSpires.com. And if you go to TwinSpires.com and go to that tournaments tab, you can check out the various contests that are available. We're recording this on Friday morning. And if you go to that tournaments tab, you can see just on Friday here, we have Aqueduct feeders into the Lecomte KDBC qualifier. So you want to get into feeders for bigger contests, you can do that. You want to do cash contests, they have fairgrounds contest, turfway contest available. There's a nice qualifier today, a $400 fairgrounds bonus feeder into the contest that we're going to focus on here for Saturday. And that's the big $1,000 fairgrounds Tampa Bay Downs KDBC NHC qualifier. John, I know you're an avid contest player. You play contests all over the place. I see you on horse tourneys. I see you on, express bets. So you're all over the place. You go to some of the live tournaments, but TwinSpires.com has produced like a daily money contest. The real money contest, not a pick and pray type format, not a something that's done all the time. You're in a live money contest all the time. So what makes that attractive to you, those live money contests?
I think it's more, there's a combination. There's both handicapping and betting ability. And I always think the live money contests are much more strategic, or certainly strategy in a different way than a flat $2 win play strategy. And depending on the format of the contest, whether you just have to make one big bet or whether or not you have to make 3 or 4 minimum bets to wager your old bankroll, there's a lot more strategy involved. And I think the people that spend time thinking about how to get to their goal, how to get to a winning number, have a big advantage than those that are just playing a contest linearly, meaning they're looking at race 1 and going to race 9 and making bets as they go. And we'll see it today if we're going to look at the Fairgrounds and Tampa contest. You really want to be looking at the last race of the contest. In this case, it would be the 9th at Fairgrounds. Then maybe the last race at Tampa or the second to last race of the contest. And see if you have opinions at the end of a contest, and then you can formulate how you want to bet earlier in the contest. So I think being able to get an overview of what a contest looks like and using your head and strategizing how you're going to bet, along with the acumen of handicapping, that's what appeals to me. And I think that's what appeals to a lot of other people as well.
Well, our man Darren Zaccali was updating on X yesterday. And if you look at his X, he mentions in his tweet that the first 18 months of Twin Spires tournaments have been incredible. But, they've had more Twin Spires account holders playing a tournament through the first 8 days of January this year than they did all of January in 2025. And if you look at some of these contests, John, they're filling up quickly. Those cash contests are very, very, very well attended. And, these qualifiers that are producing these bigger contest seats for those KDBCs, for the NHCs, the players have really attached themselves to these contests. They're very popular, but the reason that they are popular is we have so much talk of the computer-aided, wagering places and the effect on the odds. I just feel like that these contests provide players a lot of value. And talk about the value that these contests bring and what attracts them to you for that sense.
Well, that's a key of it. So one of my guests on in the tournament when it was Tony Joe, and he always talks about bankroll to prize money. So the value in the contest is if you think you have a really good strategy betting wise, you're going to take a pool of that prize money, right? So the idea is that you're not just getting the dollars like you do out of the pool and dealing with the CAWs and dealing with those odds changes and decreasing your value. You're actually trying to get a portion of that prize money that you've put up and that you're fighting with other players for. So that's really the value. So if your edge comes in being able to bet and gamble properly to take value out of the prize pool, as opposed to finding overlays and horses that are going to be good money and ignored by CAWs when you're playing through the actual pools.
Well, we have a $1,000 contest this weekend at Twin Spires and involves Fairgrounds and Tampa Bay Downs. So we have 2 tracks and we have access to all their races. You have $500 going to the prize pool. You have $500 to start out your bankroll. John, I know you have a lot of evergreen content with your show. You've had access to a lot of the guys that have been very successful in these tournaments. The thing that intrigues me and listening to all the shows is, a lot of these guys have different backgrounds, they have different styles, they have different strategies and things that make them successful. So it's interesting that not one size fits all for these tournaments. There's, you have your Matt Millers of the world that are in there every day and he has his way of doing things. You mentioned Tony Zoe that has his ways of doing things. But it's amazing that the show you had this week with Chris Couples, he's a very astute horse player, but obviously his style is different than those guys. So talk about a little bit just the stuff you've learned from your guests and some of the content that they've given you.
Yeah, I think the basic thing, like you're saying, is one size does not fit all. Like Matt Miller has a strategy to play large daily doubles for his whole bankroll and take advantage of overlays going from an even money shot to an 8-5 shot, or narrowing a field down to 1, 2, or 3 horses and going all in on those 3 horses to try to build a bankroll, knowing that he may make one big bet later. Somebody like Chris Couples, in a format where you just have to bet your bankroll, is willing to take one opinion at 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 to 1, bet all your money on that one opinion, and if you're right once, you win the contest or win your prize. Others are more, they do a step-by-step basis. They like 2 or 3 horses in a contest. So that's one thing I've learned, that just because I have a preconceived notion of how I want to play a contest doesn't necessarily make it right. Right? It might be right for me and my style and the horses I'm able to handicap. If I like short-priced horses and that's my ilk, and I can find even money shots that I think are better than 50-50, and I can find 2 or 3 of those in a contest, that's going to be my road to success. If I prefer to bet 5, 6, 7 to 1 shots, like Chris, my road to success is to find the best one I can see on the card, put all my money in on that horse, and then worry about my minimums later. If I'm more of a speculative player, meaning I like daily doubles and I like just betting against favorites, maybe I go 2 deep in one leg and 3 deep in another leg and spread my money around and take my shot to beat what I think is a low-priced favorite. So what I've learned is lots of people do different things, but we're all ultimately just trying to get to the same goal, and that final number is 8, 10, 12 times bankroll, and that's pretty consistent across all platforms and all formats.
Well, for this contest this week, John, I know you can pick winners. You definitely, have your share of contest wins, especially if you got yourself a Pegasus seat last weekend. So you're right there. You're mixing it up every week and, winning these contests. And I know you had great success last year at Keeneland also with their fall contest. So you're at the top of these leaderboards. Maybe let's look and get some winners here for some of these races on Saturday at Fairgrounds and at Tampa. Let's go to Fairgrounds first. And I know you wanted to start in race 3. Now we have some weather at Fairgrounds. There's some rain expected. A couple turf races on Saturday. Have to kind of wait and see on what will show up on the grass. I know yesterday they took some races off the turf mid-card, so that's always a very frustrating thing. Yeah. But John, let's go to race 3. It's a 15 claimer. They're going a mile and 7D. How would you approach this race? Maybe from a contest standpoint or just a regular handicapping standpoint?
So I was looking at this race. I was looking at the 7-horse Blueberry Eyes. It's a 7-year-old mare. It's been running for a while. It's got 46 starts, and the horse likes to win. It's got 10 wins. What I really like about this horse is the distance. He's 8 starts at a mile. He's got 5 wins, 2 seconds, and a third. And it looks like this race is going to set up beautifully for him. The 6, Pickin' and Grinnin', looks like to be the lone speed. And Blueberry Eye should sit a great trip, second or third, just outside. And I think his figures are comparative. He's got a sloppy win at a mile in his last race at Fairgrounds. I just think he looks to be the right horse that's going to get the right setup in the right type of race. And he's a 6-1 morning line horse. I would take probably down to 7-2 on that horse and think he was a pretty good wager.
Now, would that be looking at this card? Would that be a horse that you'd be willing to push on, maybe, or something that maybe you want to start some doubles with, or maybe back end some doubles with? I mean, I realize that every contest is different, and every leaderboard's a little different. If somebody jumps out early, that changes your strategy. But would this be a horse that you'd be more trying to go with a minimum with, or would this be one that you'd want to take a swing?
I think this is a horse that I would take a swing at, depending on the price. If he stayed at the 6-1, anywhere from 5 to 7-1, say, so he's around his morning line, I thought he offered value. I could see this being a horse that you could press all in on. If he drops down to 7-2 or 3-1, I think he would just be a speculative play. He'd probably just be a minimum wager or a small win wager. I don't particularly like the 2nd or the 4th, so I didn't look at doubles around that horse. I thought those races were wide open and anybody could win. So I think this is going to be a price dependent play that if his odds drop too low, I'd pass or just make a small relative wager. And if his odds stay where I think they should be, I could see this being an all-in type of play.
Yeah, I could see you getting a price here because this horse really rarely ever takes money. If you look, I mean, it was 24-1 winning last time, and some of those other races I may have been in too tough, but typically is between 10 and 20-1. So I would think you'd be getting a nice price on that one, race number 3, Fairgrounds on Saturday. Well, let's go to race number 7. We were talking offline a little bit. This is a 1X allowance here, but there's a couple interesting horses in this race. And from a contest standpoint, I would think that this would be a race that I would be more willing to take a stand in. I like the 2 Rising Inflation. This one's 5-2 morning line. Now, you would think that this horse might be a little in this race, but they're a little bit less on the board in this race. But there's other contenders in here. This 5-year-old mare, 6-for-11 lifetime, comes off a nice state bred win last time in a turf stake race with a fast pace. This one just galloped, got a nice little setup, but is very equally adept on the dirt. Also, if you look, won a nice state bred stake race back on November 20th. And this is, again, a mare that likes to win regardless of circumstance. She finds a way to be in the mix. She's won 4 out of her last 6 races. And I know that they're state bred races, but it's just one of those horses that I think you might be able to get a little value because the horse you like, the 7, is a Brad Cox that's lightly raced that comes in. Now, talk to me about that one. It's a Juddmonte Brad Cox that shows up in this 1X here. Why do you like her?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those short-priced horses that if it gets overbet, I wouldn't play this race. But I am in agreement that I think it's a 2-horse race. I think it's the 2 or the 7. I'm against the 2 Rising Inflation because of all of her wins are in state-bred company. Mm-hmm. And the 7 Chasten has been in open company for its entire career. It's a Kentucky bred. It broke its maiden first time out at Churchill. Then it ran lousy at Fairgrounds, granted in the slop, which may be a key factor. Then it took a small freshening. It ran in a good second to shred the gnar in its return race at Churchill on Derby Day. Might have been Oaks Day, but I think it was Derby Day. Then ran another lousy race at Churchill in the slop again, second time out. Now he gets a 6-month layoff. The horse clearly fires fresh, then seems to go off form. But I'm not sure if he's going off form or he doesn't like the sloppy track. So if the track does come up sloppy, I would likely pass this race. Mm-hmm. And if the track is somehow fast, even with the weather they'd have, this would be the horse I want off the layoff, running fresh. And then I would be betting against this horse going forward.
Yeah, and I understand that. And this is an interesting dynamic here because you have the lightly raced, horse that has the class, but you also have the horse that has 6 lifetime wins that, she's racing against state breds, but she's racing against multiple winners frequently here. So I would think that it's going to be an interesting dynamic, and the board will tell a story there.
Yes.
in Fairgrounds race number 7. Well, I want to save the last race at Fairgrounds, John, because that's going to be the last race of the contest. And a lot of these contests hinge on the last race. So let's go to Tampa in a couple spots that you like. And they're later in the card. They're 2 turf races. Race number 8, they're on the grass, Mountain 8th. It's a 1X. And these Tampa turf races, always have these big fields. So who'd you like?
Yeah, I liked one of the low-priced horses. It's a second choice in the morning line, Perky, the 2 at 4-1. It's a Miguel Clement horse. This horse just looks like he's coming into the race at the right time, this filly. She was 2 for 2 at Tampa last year, broke her maiden here, granted in a $32,000 claimer. Then ended up improving her speed figure second time out again at Tampa, winning a starter allowance. She was off for almost 8 months. She comes back in November at Gulfstream. They get rained off the turf, and she runs on the synth and just runs an even race, pretty poor, 3 wide all the way around. They come back today. They ship her back up to Tampa. They get her into the spot that they want in the one other than 2 life allowance races. And I think this is what she wants. We know she likes the turf. She figures to sit a good trip mid-pack or towards the back. There looks to be enough speed to chase in the race with the 6 Sonia Henney, the 8 Frieder, the 10 Naughty Favors. So I thought she just looked like to be in a good spot. And this is a type of horse late in a contest. If I needed to double my bankroll, this is a horse that I would go all in on at 2-1 or more.
Yeah, this is a good look here, I think. And I like horses that like this Tampa turf course. It's a little quirky. It's difficult to handle. And it's kind of like Keeneland in some ways, that horses that like it race very well over it. Horses that don't, you can see that sometimes that they take a big step backwards. So, and you mentioned this would be one that you'd be wanting to, kind of push on, especially pretty late in a contest here now. You're going to have your minimums pretty well squared away, maybe not totally, but certainly one that you would want to have in your back pocket towards the end of a contest for sure that you like. And you should get a halfway decent price. You should get more than 2-1 on that horse there, race number 8 at Tampa on Saturday. Go to race 10, the second to last race of the contest here. And again, quite important for positioning, to get everyone's going to kind of shake themselves out and you'll know where you are going into that last race here. I thought that this was another wide open race. And John, I'm curious to see what the Palace Girl, the 1, takes in here. That race at Keeneland on October 23rd was quite poor, was a sub 2-1 in there for William Walden. Now, he seems to win races all over the country, wherever that shows up in here, gets an inside post, but you got it against a Grand Motion shipper, and you got a Chad Brown 2-1 favorite. So I'm very curious to get your thoughts here.
And I'm going against all of those horses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I don't like the favorites in this race at all. I mean, I think all of them can win, but I think they're going to be overbet. I think the Chad Brown horse, Celtic Motif, is going to be overbet. I think the Will Walden horse is going to be overbet. And the horse that I like is actually 10-1 in the morning line. It's the 5-horse Queen Dancing. It's another horse that has good connections. I mean, it's Bill Mott. The owner is his Bessalou Stables. That's the owner and breeder. And it's got 3 races, and it looks pretty flat on paper. But I can make excuses for all of these races. He tried to break his maiden at Kentucky Downs, ran a flat race, but Kentucky Downs is a funky different course. And that was going 6.5, not necessarily his best distance. He tries to go 1 1/8 at Keeneland. Johnny V puts him up towards the lead. They go pretty fast to the 6 furlong and the mile points, and he stops. And then he takes him back again in the Gulfstream race, and they dawdle up front. He runs 6 by 3 1/4, but he had some energy coming. And I just think in this race, he's never had a pace scenario that worked for him. And I think in this race, he actually gets the pace scenario. I think he can sit mid-pack, and what's going to be a pretty moderate pace. There's not a lot of speed signed on. And I think he's going to get first run on the Palace Girl and on Celtic Motif. So I thought as a real long shot type play, especially if you're down on your bankroll and you need a price, this is where you're going to find it. There's a lot of sexy connections that are going to take money. And this has a good trainer, a good enough jockey in Daniel Centeno, especially at Tampa, that you're going to get all of 10-1, in my opinion, in a horse that figures to sit the right trip in this one.
Yeah, it's a good look there. And it's nice to have one of these kind of horses too, that if, you mentioned if you're familiar with John's show, if you listen to the episode that John did with himself when he won the Keeneland contest, he was pretty much down to a very low bankroll at the end. And the last race at Keeneland, he nailed that last race to come from over 100th in the pack to win the contest. So if you're looking for a get out special here at Tampa, you got Queen Dancing, and you're going to get this price here because there are plenty of other horses to take money.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key. When you're looking for a price, you can't just be stabbing because you think the horse has a chance to win at some big number. I mean, you think the horse is live and you know you're going to get your price because other horses are going to take money that you don't think they should. That's kind of what I look for in a bad favorite.
Let's go to the last race of this particular contest we're focused on. Again, Twin Spires Fairgrounds, Tampa, $1,000 bankroll contest for Saturday, January the 10th. And John, it's race 9, Fairgrounds. It's scheduled to go off at 5:45 Eastern time. Got a stakes race. It's the Gary Palmisano Sr. Stakes here. They're going 6 furlongs. Again, there's going to be a couple nice favorites in here. You got Go Sugar in here. That's a 2-1 morning line. El Dinero. They've been sort of trading blows in the Louisiana stake races. What do you like?
So this was one, and for contest players, I actually handicapped this race first. And I stole that idea from Paul Sherman from one of his podcasts years ago, and a good friend of mine, Jeff Bussin. They always handicap the lost race first because they want to know if they have an opinion in the lost race, and that's going to dictate how they bet those earlier races and how they bet those earlier races. So when I got to this race, Go Sugar looks tough. I mean, but she's going to be a short-priced favorite. And if you're looking to connect on a short-priced favorite, maybe Go Sugar's the type of horse you're going to go with. She's not really the type of horse I like necessarily in the last race of a contest. I think she's going to have a lot of speed to deal with here. The 2 Sir Wellington, the 9 Carpus are both going to want to go. And El Dinero, who's the second choice, he raises a couple of red flags to me. He looks like he's going to sit the perfect trip just behind the speed, but his record at Fairgrounds is 6 starts, 0 wins, 3 seconds, 1/3. He wins a lot of races, but he doesn't win them at Fairgrounds. So he ends up being 6 for 19 elsewhere, but 0 for 6 at Fairgrounds. So I decided, I think there's a lot of speed. I think the second choice in the wagering behind Go Sugar doesn't really like to win horse. So I'm really speculative here, and I looked at the 1, Benoit. He's a horse that's just cutting back. He's been routing for a while. But when you go back to his original sprints when he first started racing, he ended up being 2 for 3 sprinting. He's got a second at Louisiana Downs and 2 wins at Delta Downs. Those are his only races under a mile. I really like the cutback, especially in the Louisiana bred stakes. I love the long stretch at Fairgrounds for a horse that's just getting started. Sometimes I think speed can get tempered there because they look like they're spurting away at the top of the stretch, and the normal front runner hits the top of the stretch and they try to pull away, but they may do that, but they still got a quarter mile left to run at Fairgrounds. These turnbacks, they get to the top of the stretch and they're just getting their stride going, and they have plenty of a straightaway to make up some ground. And if it's a little bit speed on top, if Go Sugar has to fight with both Sir Wellington and Carpus, then I want Benoit picking up all the pieces late. And I think you're going to get every bit of 6-1 on that horse.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's a good look there as far as having a closer. This horse has some class. Chasing Touch Upon a Star, we all know that one is pretty much unbeatable in those longer races, the Louisiana breds. I mean, beat Sierra Leone last year, so plenty of class with that one. And you're looking for a closer in a speed-filled race. This one has some class, a little turn back. Lots to like, certainly working very well. If you need another horse in the last race of this contest, maybe take a look at the 1 Benoit. Well, John, really appreciate you doing the show here. Plenty of nice analysis for this contest on the contest side, plus on the handicapping side. People need to look for your show and the contest winner was. That's on the Black in the Money feed. If you're checking on the podcast side. And of course, John, look forward to more of that evergreen content that you're putting out and more segments for some of these Twin Spire segments going forward.
That'd be great, Mikey. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love doing it.
This has been a production of In the Money Media. Jump in on these contests for Twin Spires. We'll talk to you guys soon.